So great to see you all. Just a little recap from last week, just very, very briefly. Last week, we were introducing the first of the three fetters, and you'll remember I was talking about how there is a model, and it is only a model, of there being 10 fetters, 3 of which, if they can be broken, guarantee irreversibility or stream entry along the path to enlightenment. Last week, I introduced the fetter of habit, habitual ways of being, of behaving, of acting. And you might recall I suggested that we are our habits. Indeed, we're just a to the extent to which we're just a collection of habits, you could just define us as a habit. And I'd asked you to consider during the course of the week whether any habits or tendencies that were kind of quintessentially you, but that you'd like to change. So in other words, unhealthy, quintessentially you, and we'll have an opportunity to do that a little while after the meditation. But that was the first fetter, habit. This week, Pranyamai will be talking about the second of the 3, which is superficiality. I won't say too much about that, other than to say that it's associated with that sort of going through the motions and not really willing to commit, or at least committing only to a certain extent. Usually, certainly at the start of my journey, the extent was just to the extent to which I was comfortable, and didn't delve too deeply into myself. I think that's why a lot of people numb out and watch TV in the evening. Just kind of, who wants to actually sit and look at themselves and experience themselves too deeply? That was certainly my experience in the beginning, before I kind of what do you call that board that people jump off into the pool? It's an Olympic sport. It's a high dive or something, is it? They kind of like a white board. They walk out and they kind of bounce and dive off. So eventually I dove. But Pranyamai will be talking about that particular fetter. And then next week, the last week, we'll be talking about the fetter of vagueness, the last fetter. Vagueness, lack of clarity, lack of sort of understanding. I think it can also be kind of almost an aspect of deliberately turning away, not wanting to engage. So to that extent, it can be similar to the fetter of superficiality that Pranyamai is going to be talking about tonight. I think what we'll do now is we'll just break, or not break into our breakout groups. We will sit and have a meditation now, because I want to talk a little bit about. Last week I mentioned, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but last week I mentioned that the Buddhist tradition breaks down experience into a number of kind of components or constituent parts. So I said that there was, we had these senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body. And in the Buddhist sense, we had, in the Buddhist tradition, we have mind being a sense. So we have all these senses that pick up raw data. We see things, we hear things, we taste things, we touch things, we think of things. And in some detail, I explained how we sort of impute a fixed me into this whole process of experience. So we come into contact with something, we hear or see or taste or touch something. We then have the sensation that it's pleasant, painful, or neutral. We then sort of label it as such, and then we kind of move into what's known as mental formations or volitional tendencies. We decide whether we want to, move in that direction and sort of acquire it, or move away and kind of move away from an experience. And at the end of this 5-stage process, we have this aggregate or skanda of consciousness, where we think there's a fixed self or a fixed personality that is watching this process happening. It came across a lovely description of what was kind of going on. We have a tendency to cling and grasp, and to project our evaluations tinged by clinging and grasping onto the raw data of our sense experience. I just thought that was really, really succinct way of saying what I think I seem to spend ages talking about last week. I just read it again. We have a tendency to cling and grasp, and to project our evaluations tinged by this clinging and grasping onto the raw data of our experience. So we make something out of an experience, and we build up this whole notion of me, this kind of fixed self. And in essence, you could say that the path to awakening, the path to breaking these three fetters, is about seeing through the delusion that there is a fixed aspect of me that is never changing. I'm quite confident in saying I wouldn't have become a Buddhist if there was no possibility of any sort of change. If that was it, and I was the sum total of all my upbringing and psychology and all the things that happened to be good, bad, or indifferent, and that was kind of me then, just almost like a photograph. Well, that's me now. You're the age you are, and you just kind of got to put up with it. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't have chosen this path because there wouldn't have been any reason to see that change was possible. So I want to invite you to kind of sit and relax, and we're going to do a meditation now where I'm just going to try and lightly bring into your awareness during the course of the meditation, just get you to kind of reflect on the components of your experience to see if there's anything fixed in your experience. Just as a way of kind of meditatively allowing it to kind of reflect on what I said last week, which was, in a sense, cognitive and intellectual, but it needs to kind of drop down to a more emotional level where you feel, oh yeah, I kind of feel what I'm being told. It's not just that I understand what Reggie Mooney told me last week. I actually feel in my experience more of a sense of what he's talking about. So let's try that. So just in whatever way you've been sitting comfortably, whether it's lying or sitting on a chair or the floor or whatever, just invite you to do that now. And I'll do the same now while I'm setting up here. So I'll ring 3 bells at the beginning and 3 at the end. And I'll invite you to do the mindfulness of breathing. For those of you who aren't familiar, I will just kind of introduce what the stage is about as we go through. There's 4 stages. I just kind of introduce it and then just kind of drop in some reflections as we go through, and then ring 3 bells at the end. So just settling into the posture, making any last minute adjustments, and maybe taking 1 or 2 longer breaths, particularly out breaths. That is a tendency to kind of calm the mind, quieten things down. You might imagine you're sitting in the middle of a snow globe that you buy on your holidays. The dust or the snow is swirling all around, and you just need whatever amount of time that you need to allow the snow just to settle all around you. Allow the snow of your day to settle, as it were. All the activities that you were doing, all the thinking, all the conversations, all the responsibilities, just watching it all settle down all around you, putting all the thoughts down. You can take them up later, they're not going anywhere. And as all this snow settles around you, you're just aware of your body, the breathing, the sound of my voice. Feel free to drown out my voice if you're finding yourself quite concentrated. It's a good practice to be able to drown out extraneous sounds, including me, if you're finding yourself getting quite concentrated. On your own good time, start to become more and more aware of the breath. Particularly the movement it causes in your body when it enters and leaves and enters and leaves the body. So one of your senses, as I mentioned last week and recapped briefly this evening, is your hearing. So you're listening to me now. But notice, is that all that's going on? Is it just your hearing, listening to me, and that all? Is that a fixed experience? Or do other things happen? What else do your senses pick up on? The mindfulness of breathing. The first stage, we place a count at the end of the out breath. And continue to do so until 10. Coming back to 1 after we've got to 10, or after we've got distracted. So in between, when I'm not talking, what are your senses picking up in your experience? Including your mind sense. Find yourself thinking a lot. When you notice it, just before you come back to 1, maybe just ask yourself, what's on my mind? What am I thinking about? If you can discern what you're thinking about before you resume back at 1, do you think about that thing a lot? Is it part of a pattern of repetitive thinking about the same thing or person or situation, maybe, that your mind seems to fixate upon? And then just let it go. Come back to placing the count at the end of the out breath. the second stage, we place the silent count at the beginning of the in-breath. Again, silently counting up to 10, coming back to 1 when you've got to 10, or coming back to 1 when you've got distracted even. This stage, the focus is more on the in-breath. So perhaps this stage stimulates the sense of smell. Maybe, maybe not. And if it does, is that's all that their senses are picking up, just the sense of smell. You're also listening to me. Your mind is also creating impressions. All those things are happening at the same time. Is there anything at all fixed in your experience? Or is your experience more like a river, constantly flowing? The current moving from side to side of the riverbank as your senses pick up different sense data, raw data. Things you hear, things you smell, the body picking up temperature, maybe even in the room. The thoughts creating impressions. It all happening in the current and flow of the river. I invite you to imagine you're a bird flying above that river. Only the bird is your awareness, your mindfulness. You're just watching the flow of experience below you. The movement of the water, the twists and turns in the river's current. All the different things that are going on in your experience now. Ears picking up what I'm saying, other senses picking up other experiences, your mind creating impressions. And all the while you're just flying above the river, watching the flow of experience. But your awareness isn't a thing, isn't a bird. See if you can imagine the bird being invisible, an invisible bird flying above the river. So is there anything at all fixed in that image? Just an invisible bird flying above the flowing river, the river of your experience. In this stage, we let go of any counting we may still have been doing in that practice, and just continue to be aware of the breath coming in and out of the body. Just the movement of the breath. The image of the invisible bird. The river below. The bird breathing. Every breath changing. Long breaths, short breaths. If you find this distracting, that's okay. Maybe just tune into the breath coming in and out of the body, particularly in the tummy area, just to ground yourself, anchor your awareness once again. When you think you've grounded yourself, maybe take flight once again. Follow the river of your experience. Imagine we weren't restricted by our habitual ways of being, that you are free as a bird, so to speak, to act in a new way, kinder way, more generous way, more emotionally positive way. To really commit to a new way of living. Committing to a new way of being even. So what's the predominant thing in your experience now? Are you still the invisible bird, or is the mind caught up in the frothy turbulence of the river down below? And if it is, what's it caught up with? Just notice it. What am I caught up with now? And if it's very strong, just come back to the breath in the body for a few moments to ground yourself again. See if you can rise above the flow of the river again. And just let what's happening in your experience happen, without you having to interfere or change it in any way. So in this last stage, I just invite you to let go of all the effort you've been making. Just sit with whatever's happening in your experience. Not trying to change it. Just watching it. This is what our experience is all the time. We just don't become aware of it. It's just a never-ending flow of experience, like a river. We try and cling to bits of it, desperately seeking security. Grasping and clinging. What would it be like to let go of that? Just be at ease with whatever was happening in our lives. In the flow, in the current, and completely content. So when you're ready, just bring the practice to a close. You can open your eyes and move a little bit if you need to. So we're going to break into the breakout groups now. Claire, could you break us up for about 14 minutes?
Yeah.
Please. And it'll just be an opportunity to talk about how that meditation went, should you wish. But also just to follow up on the home practice from last week. Are there any habits that are quintessentially you, but that you'd like to change or loosen up? And the second question was whether there are any people or situations in your lives that prevent you from changing or loosening up. So just those two. Like last week, in the last couple of minutes, myself and Pranyamai will zoom into one or two groups just to see how you're getting on. And we'll come back then in, as I say, in about 14 minutes. So enjoy that. Thanks, Claire.
So welcome back from your very short break. And I hope you are relaxing and enjoying the evening. So this course is titled The Taste of Freedom. Just like the ocean has one taste, the taste of salt, so the Dharma has one taste, the taste of freedom. And throughout the weeks of this course, we've been bringing your attention to ways of living a Buddhist path that can help us to change, to move from the wheel onto the spiral. And in the last two sessions, and the final one will be next week, we'll be looking at the fetters, the three fetters that if we can break these three fetters, we will get on the spiral path in an irreversible way, become a stream entrant, and in that water image of the stream entering the river, entering into the sea, and be free. Free from our habits, or going through the motions, and are living life in a vague way, seeing things as they really are, knowledge and vision of things as they really are. And that's quite a simple statement, isn't it? You know, wow, that's easy, but it's not easy at all. And what we have to work with is ourselves. By the nature of the fact that we are a human being, we have, if we follow a path, the potential to become an awakened human being, or to awake, enlightenment, seeing things as they really are. So what stops us seeing things as the way they are is our habits. And the three fetters, the habits, and this one I'm going to talk about now, I like to see them as chains, three chains. But actually, we can break our chains. We get the key, open the lock, we're free. We can see things as they really are. Fantastic. I'm ready for it. So, what I'm focusing on tonight, but we break them all together, and then, you know, we move into the stream irreversibly. So in a sense, so what they are is all connected. And the habit of superficiality, yes, Sangharakshita talks about going through the motions. We just go through the motions in our life. You know, we go to work, meet our friends, on our phone, watch a movie, go to concerts, see our family, see your boyfriend, partner, children, you know, move house, travel, get older. You know, this is our life. But in all of that, we can do it superficially, or we can be present in our experience of life. And we've always all had moments like that. We have moments where, you know, particularly these days, and in this virtual world, you know, we're on our phone, we're maybe looking at something on the laptop, somebody's talking to us. And I had an experience of this the other day with a friend who said to me, I can do all of that. You can't. And I felt myself coming into like a reactive response of, you know, which wasn't, it was probably would have involved a curse. So I didn't say anything. So that was a kind of knowing that there was a gap in my experience, and I have practice to see, oh, I don't like that response, but I'm not going to react to it. I'm going to respond instead. I'm going to say nothing. But that's not easy to do, isn't it? Because we live very much from the rational mind. And the rational mind for us is usually in our experience, in our brain. You know, what happens when you sit down to meditate? Where do you go right away? Probably into some thoughts of what's happened to you earlier on, what's going to happen later on, what kind of dinner I'm going to have, some thoughts about it. So we're split off from our emotional connection, our feeling. And in order to change and to grow and develop and to break the fetter of superficiality and the others, we have to become wholehearted in everything we do. So that's pretty easy. Wholehearted, really feeling everything, being with everything, all phenomena rolling by, and I'm with it all. But it's difficult to do because we have conditioned response based on her birth, on our childhood, where we live, who we hang out with, what's happened to us in life. All of that create, this habit of me. So the antidote to superficiality is making a commitment. And the commitment, I would say, is to become wholehearted in everything you do. So if you are somebody who likes music and you are listening to music, you probably have the experience of becoming wholehearted. You're totally connected with the music. You're just really with it. You're not split off into looking at what's coming next or thinking. You're just wholeheartedly with it. You're resting more than likely in the heart, opening the heart. Or if it's something else like drawing or writing or walking in nature or chatting with a friend, and that real connection where we open up that wholeheartedness. It's a real feeling of being embodied. So I would suggest the way we can practice with this is to feel what it's like when we actually become aware of our body. We in Buddhists often talk about arriving. My daughter says to me, "Oh, you Buddhists, you're always talking about you have to arrive." Or she'll be joking and say, "Have you arrived yet?" If I go over and visit her house or something. And what we mean by that is that when we move from one thing to the other, we kind of take stock, not all the time, because it depends on what's happening, but it's to feel yourself connected to the earth and to feel wholehearted in the conversation. And we can't do that if we're rushing around all the time and don't pause. It can be just a minute or 30 seconds, whatever you have, that gap before we move into the next event or next conversation. So there's the beauty of the Buddha, and why I'm a follower of the Buddha, is he left all these teachings for us to practice and said, don't take my word for it. Here they are, have your experience and see if it works for you. So there's lots of ways to work with this. So attachment to rites and rituals as an end in themselves, which is another way of saying going through the motions. In our Buddhist practice, because everyone here has made a commitment, the fact that you're still here, you're not superficial at all. You're making an effort to come on a Wednesday night to this class, because in some ways you are getting something out of it and see something in maybe Buddhist teachings that's helping you in your life. And that's great, because there is loads in the Buddhist Centre, loads of ways of continuing to connect with the Dharma, which we will outline a bit more next week, but I will say a few things. But the key ways of not being superficial, first of all, would be if we have a meditation practice. So we have, and you've all been through, not all of you, but quite a few of you have been through the meditations that we teach, which is the mindfulness of breathing and the metabhavana, cultivating love and kindness for yourself and others. So what they are about is integration. So harnessing the energies so that you can put them in one particular direction. So when we learn the mindfulness of breathing, we become aware of the breathing body at its basic sense. And we realize, the breath changes, we hear the thoughts in our heads, we move from all, we start to see. And in the metabhavana, we cultivate that loving kindness. We bring warm-heartedness into our meditation through cultivating metta for our friends, for ourselves, our friends and others, and moving into people that maybe we have difficulty with and spreading it into the world. And those two meditations are about wholeheartedness. They're an antidote to superficiality. Because if we're doing a meditation practice, I would say, even if you feel, I can't do meditation or it doesn't work for me, 10 minutes every day. If you can do longer, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it makes a huge change in your life. And it's also very good at seeing what we do and not reacting, but responding creatively. So it's kind of looking at where you can make a commitment. So in this Buddhist path, making a commitment involves meditation. There is, it would be great if you could meditate 7 days a week for 40 minutes, but if you can't do that, do it for 20. And if you can only do 10, that's better than not doing it at all. Whatever we do, we're taking stock for 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes of what's going on. And it is going to feed our ability to becoming wholehearted, integrated, and responding not in a superficial way, not going through the motions, but in that wholehearted way. So in Buddhism, we talk of the mind, and the mind is also the heart in Buddhism. So the mind, the thoughts, emotions, but it's the chitta relates to heart and mind. So it's heart, mind. So the heart is involved in this all the time. It's not an afterthought. It's that it's wholeheartedness. And wholeheartedness, if we can become wholehearted, we will step onto the spiral path, because we will be through superficiality, vagueness, and habit. If we're wholehearted, we're present and connected. It's just it's a simple word, but it has a huge effect. So we have to find emotional equivalence to our intellectual understanding. So we think and we feel, but we usually move into the rational world of connection before we will touch into the emotional equivalent. We're unclear a lot of the times what the emotion is until it happens, particularly if our buttons are pressed in some way by somebody, to do with, can be something in the world that's happening, and it can be something in our work environment, it can be family relationships, it can be just whatever it is, but something that we don't want to feel, and we react with words. So we need to integrate our emotional and rational. We have the conscious And then we have unconscious minds. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with psychology and Jungian theory. You can see about integrating all of that. And that's really important on the Buddhist path. So making it the commitment, it has to come from your heart. That's why wholeheartedness is really important. You have to want to do it. You have to see the benefits of following the path. If you're going to Dharma study, you want to be present at the study. If you are meditating, you want to do your best to be present. If you are on a retreat, you want to be wholehearted on the retreat. If you're walking, you want to be wholehearted in your walking. So whatever it is, being wholehearted is the key. So the daily meditation is important in a Buddhist life. You're all at this course, so you're interested in Dharma study. Maybe some of you are already in a study group. That's great, because if you are in a study group, you're meeting probably once a week, once every couple of weeks. You're discussing all of these ideas in Buddhism. You're discussing the Dharma with other like-minded people, making new friends. And my experience of that is having inspirational discussions, having a laugh, and having a break for tea and biscuits or coffee, whatever it is. It's all a really good experience. And if you're not, I'd really recommend that you take the next step and join a study group. Now, you can talk to any order member about any of that. And but there's a step after that, is becoming a mitra, which means friend, and means making a commitment to practice in this tradition, the Triratna tradition. And that involves a ceremony where usually it's not just one person becomes a mitra, it's a few people become a mitra at the same time, and lighting incense and bringing a flower. There's all the ritual end of it. You can bring your family and friends, and what really state is you're committed to practice in this condition, and that you are a friend of the Triratna order. So there are mitra ceremonies that happen in the Buddhist Centre. So you probably, if you're interested, want to have a look at them. You can go and you can go to them. Probably there has been some online, but now things are opening up. If they're advertised, you can just go along and see what you think of that, or you can talk to myself and others about this if you're interested. It's making that commitment, because the Buddhist path is a committed path. And if we are starting to dip our toes in the water, we want to know what's next. In my own experience, I came along to the Buddhist Centre. I enjoyed the course. I had Introduction to Meditation, and then there's a Sangha night every Tuesday night. You can just drop in to meditate, a bit of a Buddhist ritual. Came along to that on a Tuesday night, and it was 2 years before I made any further commitment. I was interested. I liked the buzz and the Buddhist Centre, really chill place to hang out. Nobody's telling you to do anything or asking you, when are you doing this? Just so you just come along. And I was also doing yoga. So I was very involved in yoga, and went to India twice and did teacher training. But I also then was interested in becoming a mitra, and had a chat with somebody who's in the order now, a friend. And he said to me, I said, yeah, but I want to do this teacher training, continue this teacher training in yoga. And he said, well, I was married then, before I became Pranimai. He said, married, you're going to have to commit yourself to that. And you're not going to be able to commit yourself to the Buddhist path. So you need to make a choice of what you're going to do. And I reflected on it for a while, because I want to do both. And then I realized, because my heart wanted to go deeper with the Dharma, I was inspired by the Buddha particularly, and just him, the way he walked in India and went through all the practices, ended up under the Bodhi tree, and saw through all the delusion, all the fetters, and awakened to see things as they really are. So that's what I did. I committed to the path, which took me to UK, retreats, lots of them, right livelihood, Buddhist right livelihood, working with other Buddhists. I was there for 3 years doing that. Did Karuna campaigns, raising money for the ex-untouchable community. And then I came back to Ireland, the retreats, study, everything. And it was all fantastically inspirational. Some parts of it was quite difficult, but when I look at it now, I think, wow, I can't really think or feel anything better in my life. And then I joined the order, committed to joining the order, and got the name Pranayama. So it's a path, it's a committed path. But wherever you are, whether you're not ready for, Mitra or even a study group, it's important for you to consider, to reflect really, as opposed to, just, pressing the button and doing another course. What would I like to do next? What do I feel is really helping me to grow and develop? Is it more meditation? Is it Dharma study? Do I feel I really want to connect with the Sangha, the Buddhist community, meet up with people, get to know people more? Now retreats hopefully will open up, I'll go on retreat. And it's a great opportunity to go deeper. And just make that commitment. That's the antidote to superficiality. So I think we have to be tired of our habitual self to make a change. We're fed up of going through the motions. We decide to take another course, but then somebody says, why don't you take Tai Chi, or there's an art class down the way. And we might say, I can do 2 of them. I have 2 nights free. And before we know it, we really can't be wholehearted in those courses. The other day I was with a friend, and there's an artist, studio near me. And she said, Pranayama, why didn't you take a course here? We used to do that a few years ago. Look, why didn't you do that? And it's right at the end of your street. And before I would have gone, yeah, but then there would have been something else I had to do. And I was aware, no, it's not the right time. I'm wholehearted about that. I would love to do it at some stage, but now isn't the right time. I have enough in what I'm doing. Whereas before, at one stage, I was taking everything. And everything, well, maybe not everything, but 3 or 4 things. We can't give a wholehearted approach to that. So it's about reflecting on what makes your heart sing. What are you wholehearted about? And where do you want to put your energies in all of in the Buddhist path? And it may be that you skip the Tai Chi class because you want to go to study at the Buddhist Centre or go on retreat. You make a choice. Let me see what else I can say about this. Yeah, you commit to something that you can actually do. Maybe you commit to something you can do. For example, if you decide you want to do more study, well, I'm going to do another course. Well, I feel it's okay for me to do another course, but then I'll review it and see where I am, and what effect is this having on my mental, physical, and emotional states? Do I feel happy and well now? And can I look back and see changes happening? So, so making a commitment is following things through. So there's a poet I like, Jane Hirschfield. She's American poet, and she, out of her poem anyway, there's an extract, but it very poetically makes this same point. So the extract is, in Borneo, there are trees that walk on their high roots. Slowly, with effort, they put one root in front of the other. I'd love to join that stilted transmigration, to feel my skin vertical as theirs. An ant road, a highway for beetles. I'd love to not mind whatever travels my heart, to follow it through all the way to leaf form, bark furl, root touch, and to keep on walking unimaginably further. And that, for me, is the path. Integrated, wholehearted, we continue to travel the path, make a decision on what's our next step, and settling with that, and then continuing to grow and develop and reach our potential. There's another piece from Sangharakshita, which I'll finish with here. I can't find that particular code, so I won't use that. So, or I might use it towards the end. Yeah. Okay, so maybe I'll take some questions or comments or experiences, whatever you want to raise now, before we go on. Or anything you want to put in the chat box. That's if you have anything, but you don't have to.
I just ask there, if you do want to join a study group and kind of progress along the path, but you don't live in Dublin, what do you do?
Well, the good thing about, you know, the virtual world online is we have people from Tasmania at these classes, and you know, we've had people from Australia, New Zealand, and other parts of Ireland. So there are online study groups, and for anyone that's interested, we can find out when they will be starting. And if there's enough people interested, we're always wanting to help people, so we will organize one for you.
Okay.
I might just jump in there, Pran. I know that Atulya Mitra, who's another order member in Dublin, she is starting a monthly online study group, I think next month, which you can email the centre. Yeah, they can tell you kind of what's happening and just express an interest. Yeah.
So all of this information we will give you, you know, next week, like what's available, who to contact, so that you have that. So you don't have to worry about you're not going to get the information. But yeah, anyway, anybody else?
And you might, there's a question in the chat there from Mark. He just It says, you mentioned you had some challenges along your path. What were the biggest ones for you?
Oh, yeah. Good question. So, yeah, I think so I think for me, the biggest challenge was, it wasn't about making a commitment, because there was something I think I stated inspirational about the Buddha's life that drew me in. But it was, how could I change my life to follow the paths? And yeah, so I think at one point in Dublin, we didn't have any women ordained in Dublin. So I had to make a decision that I was going to go to the UK to get to know Dharmacharinis, women in the order, because that was the only way I could go deeper and could join the order. I was going to meet women in the order. And that was a challenge, because I left Dublin, I mean, almost quite literally, made a decision, left my car. I was working for myself in a stress management business. So I, left and went to work in this right livelihood business in Cambridge for 3 years, living in a community. I didn't know anybody there. So that was a big challenge, but it was fantastic. It was full on, working 9 to 5 in this kind of customer service thing. But that was a challenge, and also was inspiration, because I met a lot of people in the order from India and South and Central America who had come over, to work there as well. So I got to know people from different cultures, and I felt more connected, I think, because of that. It wasn't just one-dimensional in my probably opinion at that particular time. So that was a challenge, but it was, I was challenged to continue to go on retreat to the UK, and it was a challenge. So it took effort and commitment for me to do it. But after all of those, like the challenges of retreats, the challenges of right livelihoods, the challenges of connecting and getting to know Sangha, the absolute flow of the taste of freedom from them was just huge, even because in my habitual way, so what's that going to be like? Who are they? All that stuff. And that all went by the by, and I continued until I joined the order. So if I can do it, everyone can do it. We all can do it. But it has to be a personal choice, and for some people, they don't want to do that. But certainly going deeper, we all can do.
All right, now can I just ask you as well about your name? Is that like, have you changed your name legally as well?
No, I haven't changed it. So, so up until close to 5 years ago, I was married, going on all these things. And then I went on an ordination retreat, which was 3 months up in Aragon, in the mountains in Spain, and went through a ritual. Women ordain women and men ordain men, and then we come together as equals. So it was quite a mythical and mystical experience, and also a connecting experience, because women from other countries and their places. So then the preceptor that I had, that I have, Paramachitta, that was the other interesting thing about my path. I ended up meeting a woman who was a preceptor that means you have to be 10 years in the order before you can ordain people. And she lives in Spain. And years ago, when when I finished school in Ireland, I had been living in Spain for 3 years, went au pair and all that, traveling the Mediterranean. And here I was all these years back with this Paramachitta who was ordaining me, and I got to know all the Sangha in Spain. It was really fantastic, well, some of them anyway. And I loved it. And it sort of opened these doors. I was crossing these thresholds that I would never even consider that. when I just decided to go on retreat or take a course. So yeah, quite a lot of joy and inspiration. And then I got the name from her, Pranamai, she who is filled with wisdom, which obviously is a path. So it's like, is it Marie today or is it Pranamai? But yeah, and a lot of joy in the path. That's really important. Wholeheartedness is joy, you know, lots of joy and love and connection.
Okay, thank you.
So I think now what we'll do here is come in and do a bit of a meditation, opening up to wholeheartedness. And then Regimini is going to finish on a mantra. So once again, taking a moment to settle, arriving on your cushion, on your seat. Well, I was talking about in the beginning, moving from one thing to the other, one experience to another experience, and taking stock of where you're at. First part of taking stock of where you're at is to arrive, be aware of your body in a seated position, feet on the floor, supported by the earth, that sense of grounding. Spreading your toes out on the floor. Calf muscles. Knees. Thighs. Pelvis. Really feel the feet on the floor, buttocks on the cushion or chair, letting go. Letting go and surrendering to the experience of the body connecting with the chair and the floor. Moving into the stomach, the chest, the shoulders, dropping away from the ears, the shoulders. The back, lower back. The whole trunk of the body, releasing. Back of the neck, crown of the head, face, soft face, throat. Awareness of the breathing body. Gentle fall, rise and fall, the breath. Resting in your heart. Deep in the chest. Feeling it from the back of the body. Deep heart. Breathing into the heart gently. Opening. Notice how you're feeling. Deep heart. Wholehearted. Doing your best to be wholeheartedly present in the experience. And now letting go gently of the meditation. Just sitting for a moment. So when you're ready, coming back into the room. So, home practice. So we're looking at the fetter, superficiality, going through the motions. So the first thing I'd say is it's good to reflect on how you experience any of that in your life. Does it resonate with you? Maybe not. Maybe taking more opportunities to notice daily what you do. And yeah, so you can also just sit in a chair and reflect on what that means for you. And if you feel you are going through the motions in your life, through work, friendships, social life, and going on these courses has been part of that change. Moving to the next step and making a commitment to do something. It may be take another course, tune into the meditations that are on through the centre. Maybe you want to join a study group, whatever it is. Maybe you're happy with what you're doing at the moment, and just be okay with that. And the third thing is to notice that feeling, because it's a feeling, when we're wholehearted. We're wholehearted. There's less thought. We're integrated, the body and mind, and there's warmth. Just notice when that happens or not, if it doesn't happen. Remember what I was saying last week? Stay curious. There's no end to seeing. We look, we pay attention, we notice. Stay curious. There's no end to seeing. So we will have the mantra now. Just before the mantra, I think because we have a couple of minutes, I'll just give you those verses from that poem about following things through all the way, from the poet Jane Hirschfield. In Borneo, there are trees that walk on their high roots. Slowly, with effort, they put one foot in front of the other. I would love to join that stilted transmigration, to feel my skin vertical as theirs. A Nantes road, a highway for beetles. I would like to not mind whatever travels my heart, to follow it through all the way to leaf form, bark furl, root touch. To follow it through and to keep on walking unimaginably further.